video. Still can't hear. Anyway, whatever. Life. Holiday video, yes. Questions for Inmendham. So it's really going over a lot of the same bullshit. And I don't know if there's a point, but we'll go ahead and try. It was civil enough, at least at the beginning of it. Alright. Does the ought in your philosophy arise from the definition of bad? I guess it does, yeah. I mean, in the sense that the word bad means poison. It means, yes, the not desirable, not useful, not constructive, not productive element. It's a toxin to function, to the good thing, right? To the efficiency thing. It's a toxic to the what would rationally be described as something like an ideal. It will take you away from perfection. This bad stuff. So yes, bad is toxic to perfection and anything close to it. And yes, so by definition it is not something you ought. It's something you ought not. And you can't really have something that's bad if it doesn't diminish perfection. So if something isn't toxic to the ideal, something isn't toxic to doing the best, then it couldn't possibly be bad. So if it can't be somehow a diminishment of reality or the condition, then it couldn't be a bad. So yes, by definition, bad things are ought-nots. Are supposed logic, if not treated same things alike? Alright, so this is where, you wrote this, right? Does the ought in your philosophy arise from the definition of bad, or the supposed logic of not treating same things alike? They're two different questions, but I mean, the argument is that you can't add up stuff over here and say this is the game, because it's not. So same things exist in the universe, and there's this bowl that the whole thing is in, or however you want to look at it. You can't just say, well, because there's no bad over there, there's no bad in the universe. That's stupid. So you have to count all of the stuff when you're going to decide what the stuff is doing, or the condition of the stuff, or the perfection of the stuff. And you can't just say this stuff is real stuff, that stuff is not stuff arbitrarily. You have to have a reason to say something's not part of the equation. So the idea that you treat same things alike, although related, is only related in the sense that, but yes, of course, nonsensically, you can't just sit there and say, look, here's perfection in this little tiny corner, and we'll just ignore that everything else is broken. To pay for the perfection or something, or to create it, that wouldn't be rational. So it's the entire equation, and you're just recognizing that just because one piece of the equation is correct does not mean the rest of the equation is correct. Something like that. If oughts are not about personal choices, if oughts are about personal choices, well, they're not. They're descriptions of reality. So I guess I just don't even understand this crap. I mean, the personal choices is supposed to be by the blueprint of the right answer. So I mean, the personal choices are supposed to be maximized by some sort of logical construct or a continuity with reality. And so, yes, the leprechauns and all this other stuff is fine for personal playing around, but it's really bad for personal behavior. So, yes, you have, when it comes to the rubber hitting the road, the oughts are descriptions of reality, not personal choices. How do you reconcile the idea of suffering being imbued with compulsion and uncontrollable repulsion with the idea of an ought? The suffering being imbued with compulsion and uncontrollable repulsion. Well, again, you're using these words to describe it. And I'm saying I wouldn't mess with words like compulsion or repulsion or all this kind of stuff, and just keep with the easy words, which are good and bad. These are states of experience. The idea is to say that there are certain experiences that are better not having, better never to have been, and that's what they are by property and description. And you don't worry about whether somebody is compelled or repulsed or any of that stuff. You just worry about the fact of whether or not it's going to happen or not going to happen. And the motivational mechanism doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter how compelled you are, how compulsed you are, or any of that stuff. It just matters that you get the right answer to the problem. It doesn't really matter how you get there. It just matters that you get there. So I guess I personally would say it's not really relevant to the question of whether or not these are good or bad things. You just establish that the experience themselves are good or bad. Whether we're repulsed by them or compelled to do something about them is psychology and other stuff, and it doesn't really have anything to do with whether the correct answer is don't do that, have more of that. How can mechanism give rise to ought? How can the universe, you mean, create something like positive and negative or good and bad? Well, it did. It made a brain, made it sensitive to this quality, made it capable of manifesting it. I mean, you're going to say, should I ask some opposite silly question, like, why is it impossible for the universe to create value? You know, with a presumption built in of some kind. There's no rule against the universe doing just about anything except, that it can do. And this is on one of the possible cans, is that it can create a synthesize. It can, when complexity arises, it can synthesize experience. And that's what we're obviously doing. So it can obviously do it. Now you want to say this, the experience has no meaning, you can go ahead and say, again, this is just such a fucking idiotic argument. Alright? You want to say consciousness doesn't mean anything. I don't see how it's possible, okay? I don't give a fuck how the universe, the mechanical universe, created a brain. I really don't care, in the sense that I don't need to know that my consciousness is one fucking hell of a thing that's happening, and that it's full of this value shit. I don't need anybody to explain to me how much it hurts to have a nail shoved in my eye. I don't need it. I don't need somebody to tell me how that's not something to have happen in the universe. I don't need to know how it happens that I have consciousness to understand that I have consciousness. So again, this one is just a no-brainer. And in the sense that we personally experience it. So if you just can't get that, what the fuck are we talking about? Because this one's just, I mean, if this is the kind of crap you're going to worry about, or the kind of can you're going to kick around, we're never going to get anywhere. Because this is one that's just so fucking loud and so fucking obvious and so fucking right in your face. There's quite obviously nothing else. If you were just going to go by priority, what's the thing that has anything close to substance, meaning, value? Oh, okay. Sentience wins by like 5 million miles. So why don't we just let this shit go? Alright, I'll play. Let me hear his interpretations.
Having watched Inmendham's most recent reply to Logic Rolls the Dice,
blah, 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 blah.
I actually feel there's been some gain made here.
Yeah, well that's because you're going to pervert it.
I actually feel that we all understand the nature of suffering and the description of it.
Why are you saying something like that? When you're asking a question as stupid as, well, how can a material mechanism create anything like good or bad? I mean, good or bad, that means something, like a positive, negative, and any idea that the equation has to come out positive or it's a failure. How could you come up with anything like value? Like, yes, failure is a negative number. Failure is bad being the remainder, being what you're left over with.
Equally well, and can almost agree upon that, because in this most recent reply, Inmendham places more weight on the ought being entailed with the need to treat like things equally.
Just what a fucking pile of shit. I mean, nowhere do you derive the ought from treating things equally. You derive the ought from the negative experience. The fact that you're the idiot saying, I can't find the negative experience until it happens to me. That's the part that's ludicrous. When it's quite obvious we know what all the signs of the negative experience are. We know what a fucking bad experience looks like. And we don't personally have to experience one tiny goddamn centimeter of it to know it's existing. I mean, somebody else is on fire. I don't need to feel a single singe to know they're on fire. This is just ludicrous that you're saying, oh, I've somehow changed something, or I've somehow modified something because I've made this statement that, yes, that's right. I know what the ought is when I'm on fire. I quite obviously can't change the configuration of the equation when somebody else is on fire. I'm just saying that I know that it's the same brain function. I know it's the same fucking experience, bad. So why all of a sudden the change in how I react? Well, the change doesn't have a rational solution. The rational solution is that, yes, when it happens to me personally, the ought is in bold type, maybe you could say, because, yes, we can't miss it, because it's right there in front of us. And because when it's in somebody else, you can not add up the math properly, and then you can cheat. But that's all you're doing. You're just cheating. You're just saying, well, I can ignore the ought in that circumstance because, yes, it's not as obvious. It's not yelling in my ear. So I can cheat and pretend the ought doesn't exist. But it does. It's just the same ought. It's exactly the same circumstance. The fact that we can't resist the logic, quote unquote, when it happens to us because the ought is tied right to the experience, just means that you're just being a cheater. You're just saying, oh, okay, because it allows me not to see it, I won't see it. But it's there, just the same. And it's certainly being experienced by the person who's having the experience. He's certainly quite aware of the ought.
And I'm not so sure that's self-evident. I don't think it's true. I don't think there is a logical ought because of saying this.
Well, that's another sorry. I don't think so, but you'll give me no explanation of exactly what it is about these different organisms' experiences that's different. Why are your experiences super cool, meaningful experiences, and their experiences are not? That's just a crock of shit.
I have many questions, and probably a lot of them now are redundant because of this, what I perceive as a move on in the...
Yeah, well, you always perceive things as something like that because you're such a fucking little weaselly cunt. I mean, I'm sorry you can't figure this out, but I've been saying the same thing since the very fucking beginning. All I've been saying is that I personally have good and bad experiences. Yes, and bad is actually bad, not good or something, or not purgatory, or not neutral. Bad is bad. Bad isn't nothing. Bad is something, and it's something decidedly negative, not something positive, something fucking negative. And then I've simply said that the other fucking organisms are doing exactly what I'm goddamn doing, and so if it's bad when it's happening to me, it's bad when it's happening to them. Now that hasn't changed one motherfucking bit from the very fucking beginning, you fucking cunt. So this implication that I've changed something, or modified something, or said something different is just a fucking lie.
argument, a significant advancement. But
Yeah, fuck you, okay? I mean, I said it as clear as I could say it. I said it in simple little propositions. I recognize the feelings as good as bad. I recognize that the other fucking organisms are just the same as me and they're having good and bad experiences. If I'm going to react to bad when it's happening to me, I have to react to bad when it's happening to them. Duh!
I'll just check it with this first question. So the questions go like this. Right, to Inmendham. Does the art in your philosophy arise from the definition of bad, or the supposed illogic of not treating same things alike? Okay.
Yeah, well, again, I've already pointed it out, okay? The bad doesn't have anything to do with how you treat things. The bad is a definition, is a property of the thing itself, okay? And then the rest of the equation is, quite obviously, well, if there's bad here or there's bad there, are those two bads different? And the answer is, no, they're not fucking goddamn different.
It seems that there's been a subtle change of emphasis there.
No change of emphasis. There's good, there's bad, now there's location. Location's irrelevant. There, that's it. From the very beginning, nothing's changed. You're just perverting everything for your own little fucking purposes all the fucking time. You're just twisting and bending language to fucking find rationalizations and excuses to believe this idiotic and inane philosophy that you could somehow discount what's going on in reality here.
To the latter, it's really in the logic of not treating this same thing. Right, this is, if arts are about personal choices, how do you reconcile the idea of suffering being imbued with compulsion and uncontrollable repulsion with this idea of an art? You see, you're saying when I'm suffering, the arts wrote all over it, in terms of I want to get away from it, but it's not so much of a choice as the nature of this experience.
Well, there's no point in talking about it because it's a perfectly rational thing, right? You don't look at your repulsion or your compulsion or your panic or your whatever and you say, gee, that was sure stupid, I sure overreacted to that. No, you say that's perfectly rational. I don't want to be in the negative condition. I don't want to suffer. I don't want to be tortured. And it's clear why you don't. It's because it's a negative event. It's not some irrational label you've placed on something and you goddamn know it. The label is not irrational. The label is perfectly consistent with the quality of the experience. Bad experiences are bad, and you are repulsed by the idea of experiencing them. But that doesn't mean the repulsion is a mislabel and you goddamn know it. It's a perfectly appropriate label.
It is a compulsion, an uncontrollable repulsion.
And again, it doesn't matter, okay? It just doesn't matter because unlike things like having sex or eating or breathing or whatever, those compulsions you don't rationally judge. You don't sit there and say, okay, don't bother, because those are ones that are projections of value. But your compulsion to evade the negative experiences of bad, the sensations, there's nothing, those compulsions are made out of a perfectly reasonable, a perfectly viewable and seeable and understandable mechanism of, yes, bad is obviously bad, don't do it.
I don't think it's legitimate to say the arts wrote all over.
Alright, so let me go through this other bullshit.
Suffering.
Since we have some new sentences. Alright. How can a mechanism give rise to an art? So that's where we left off. Can any mechanism be purely described without simultaneously having to also be prescriptive? So again, this idea of worrying about prescriptions versus descriptions in reality. Yes, some things can be described, but as soon as you describe them qualitatively, yeah, they're going to have a prescription tied to them. So most things in reality, there's no prescription, theoretically. I mean, I guess you could always contrive one. You could say, this is a notebook, and notebooks are very good for writing on and blah, blah, blah. And you could give all of its good qualities, and then you could explain something like, don't shove it up a cat's ass. I mean, you could come up with some prescriptions, okay, of what it's not a good use for, what would be a bad use of it. But by definition, it doesn't have, by intrinsicness, it doesn't have any negative quality. It only has negative quality from misuse or abuse. Where when you're talking about feelings, the prescription just happens to bleed out because they have value. Things that have intrinsic value are going to have intrinsic prescriptions. Because the poison is a poison. The assassin is an assassin. The negative thing, the Darth Vader is a Darth Vader. The Empire is the Empire. I mean, the negative thing is going to be attempting to destroy everything else. That's its mission, so to speak. That's the way it's constructed. It's a destroyer. It's a deconstructor. It's a devaluer. It's a imperfecter. And the imperfectness is in it. And so, yes, there's happens to be nothing good about it. It's just completely and intrinsically bad. Oh, fuck. I can't read the other one because it's blocked by him.
So these are the questions I'd hashed together before, focusing around the idea of the definition of bad and how it oughts. And so, how can a mechanism give rise to an ought? No matter how one hell of a simulation it is, in principle, how can any mechanism give rise to an ought?
Well, again, and how can you be so presumptive to say the universe can't? Well, where are you coming up with this rule that this mechanical system cannot possibly create anything of value relevance? And again, what's the point of this conversation? This kind of minutia. You might as well go all the way back and say, I'm not going to decide anything about life on Earth or about the nature of existence until I have the exact explanation of why it exists in the first place. Why is there something instead of nothing? And so I'm putting off all decision making until then because, yes, you don't have any proof that any decision matters. I mean, well, you can do that, but I'm saying it's philosophically inept and immature and completely impractical. It's you might as well just write, I'm a big fucking imbecile on your fucking head if you're going to wait till then, because that's never going to happen. You'll never make a decision and you'll never be productive. So whatever value there is, you're going to totally miss out on, yes, and you're going to be a piece of the shit. You're just going to be part of the shit that ought not to be because you're just going to be a fucking goddamn toxic piece of crap. So bravo, asshole. I mean, I wish I could give you everything you want. Okay, all the piles. I mean, it's like the OJ trial. I could just say, yeah, okay, give me the videotape of him committing the murder. God's eye view of it. Well, yeah, alright, I don't have that evidence. But I have every other fucking piece of evidence, asshole.
It seems Inmendham. Well, I'm not remember. Can any mechanism be purely described without simultaneously having it also be prescriptive?
Yes, everything can be purely described without it being prescriptive, except sensations.
You'll have to think on that one a bit. It probably requires more elaboration.
Yeah, you probably, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Here we go. If there is no universe, if there was no universe, and there was only one mind, and it suffered, would it be of importance? Yes, I mean, it's suffering. It's creating good and bad. It's creating value. I mean, duh. If now that mind was placed in a universe, what effect would that have on its importance? It wouldn't have any effect. Its importance is created by its very function. It doesn't matter where it is. That's the very fucking goddamn point. It doesn't matter whether it's a me or a them or a that or a way the fuck over there. It just goddamn doesn't matter. It's in the configuration of the sensation itself. Again, if I could extract all the neurology that just just enough to create the idea of consciousness, the idea of a raw tooth nerve, and the idea of a pin jabbing it, and I was just to place that in a jar somewhere, it would be bad. The essence of bad distilled. We have taken all of the anything else that could have possibly be, and we've just extracted the part that's just motherfucking suck. And that's what it is. It just happens to be suck. And if it happened forever, it would be suck forever.
But I'm not going to bother. If there was no universe, because this speaks to this all this in the universe business. If there was no universe and there was only one mind and it suffered, would it be of importance? If now that mind was placed in it,
I mean, I can't even believe he asked that question, right? I mean, you're just sitting here. What do you think the answer is? You think the empty space makes it important? Do you think Pluto makes it important? No.
universe, what effect would that have upon its importance? I guess there's a prayer question. Can a mechanism exist outside of the universe?
Can a mechanism exist outside of the universe? Well, who cares? If not, how does emphasis of its existence in the universe place weight upon description of a property? Again, who's claiming any of this shit? Well, how is any of this shit relevant? You assholes are pretending that thems aren't in the universe, that somehow when it's happening to them, it's somehow not relevant, it's not meaningful. I don't have to include it in my calculations anymore. It's the bad is now somehow not a bad. It's gone. It's disappeared altogether. That's your claim. I'm claiming it's still in the fucking goddamn universe and you still have to account for it. It's just as bad as when it was happening inside of you. So if I move a bad from here and I move it into somebody else, I have not changed the bad at all. I have not changed the math at all. I've just changed the position of the bad, and the bad is still bad. And if my brain is at all sensible and logical, it should do exactly what it was doing before, which was try to kill the bad. So it should still be trying to kill the bad.
I think abstractly it can. If not, how does emphasis on its existence in a universe place weight upon a description of a property?
Well, it doesn't. How can a mechanism with a purpose in loose DNA evolutionary sense with a purpose of procreation matter to anything but itself? Again, I don't give a shit about this nonsense. I mean, I don't see... Evolution has absolutely nothing to do with understanding right and wrong, understanding good or bad, okay? Evolution is a dumb molecule. It makes machines to compete with each other for survival. It creates a bunch of nonsense mission statements for these organisms. Go out, kill little kittens, okay? There's organisms that eat kittens. I mean, there's organisms that do horrible, awful, terrible, awful things, okay? And that's just the way evolution works, because it's just a fucking maggot engine, all right? I don't give a fuck about evolution sense. I don't give a shit about DNA sense. I have intelligence, and I'm trying to describe reality. I'm not describing what DNA wants, what are good tools for gladiators. I'm questioning the very idea of gladiators. I'm questioning the very idea of constructs that have those kinds of purposes. Those things are stupid, ignorant, dumb, idiotic. They are a waste of suffering. So I'm against wasting this precious thing, these value things of sensation. Evolution doesn't give a shit about wasting that shit. Its purposes are stupid. I'm talking about the general purpose, the rational purpose of less bad, more good. That's the rational purpose. When I arrived on Earth, I figured that out rather short term. It didn't take me very long at all to say, it's better that my house isn't on fire. It's better that my parents don't die. It's better that this doesn't happen. It's better that that... Yeah, I could figure out right away that there's better outcomes and lesser outcomes. No doubt about it. And has nothing to do with the agenda of a motherfucking molecule.
How can a mechanism with a purpose, in the loose DNA evolutionary sense, with a purpose of procreation, matter to anything but itself?
It just says, who cares? Again, I have a brain, jackass. You don't understand that part? Alright? We're not doing biological evolution anymore, shithead. We're doing intellectual evolution. We're discovering reality. We're realizing the world's round. We're realizing there's other planets. We're doing all of this knowledge collection. We're not fucking goddamn animals anymore, shit for brain. God, I just, so stupid. How do words get their meaning? Are there any words with intrinsic meaning? Well, all the words in this sense are related to some word that has, yes, it's just as simple as wet describes water. That's right. We gave the slipperiness of water the description of wet. So that's what it is. The word intrinsically means that kind of thing, wetness. Okay, the sensation you feel when water is sloshing about. That's wetness. Okay, that's the way the word was invented. And like almost every word you can trace to some sort of definitional substance, where it has something where it's just pointing to something like black, a color, okay, or it's an understanding of dark, might be more nuanced, or let's see how to, dark would have the implication of dark in the sense that we have to navigate through the dark and that kind of idea. So it's a little more complex or richer word. But again, this doesn't really matter. We, in my opinion, we have enough decent vocabulary conceptually to do to write reasonable equations and to solve reasonable equations. But you people don't want to have reasonable conversations. Why do things have a property of sameness? Why do things that have a property of sameness have to be treated the same? Well, it's in the definition of the concept. If two things are alike, okay, and you have a prescription for one, the prescription is going to be the same for the other, because their properties are going to decide the prescription. That's it. Its properties decide the prescription. So that's why the treatment's the same. How do you decide which same properties imply need for same treatment? Well, I guess I'm saying by some sort of rational container of logic. You say that how big your nose is doesn't have anything to do with how much you might feel, so I'll eliminate that. How much hair is on the top of your head probably doesn't have anything to do with how much you feel, so I'll eliminate that. Yes, you start just eliminating the things that have absolutely no meaning to the thing that you're recognizing as the primary properties relevant to the declaration that it's flammable, protect it from fire. So the things that are, when you're saying let's protect it from fire, you're just recognizing the flammability properties. Duh.
How do words get their meaning? Are there any words with intrinsic meaning? Clearly not, in my opinion.
Well, I just think that's idiotic to say that the definition isn't intrinsic and that the word is just a representation of the exact thing you're talking about. I think it's just kind of silly. Lots of words like that. Which definition is more fundamental importance? Which builds upon which? Bad or negative or value? Well, again, they're all the same damn thing. The point is, value is the idea of the graduated numbers and the idea of the scale and the idea of negative numbers, positive numbers, neutral. The idea of a zero and the stuff on one side and the stuff on the other side. That's value. Negative is a description of the stuff on one side, and bad is just another word for saying, yes, negative. Not sufficient, a degrade from the thing you're attempting to do, which is go that way, positive. Go into positive, the direction of perfection, working well, function. Bad is a destruction of some kind of reasonable, metaphorical description of functional. Sufficient, adequate, good enough. Value as a difference engine hypothesis. AI sooner than we think. Well, whatever. I don't know what that means.
Why do things that have the property of sameness have to be treated the same? How do you decide which same properties imply the need for same treatment?
Well, again, these kind of questions only require what? 3 seconds of processing? I mean, obviously, the features that matter is whether you're conscious, if you have a brain, blah, blah, blah. You know, neurology, some sort of common experience, some sort of common capacity. So all of a sudden, sameness is diminished when we're talking about me and a grasshopper. Well, okay, now we've got some sameness issues, not just because of size, not because it's green, but because its neurology is different, right? We know that. But it can be speculated or deduced that there would be some still common function of capacity, and we can see it in the capacity to learn or the capacity to experience the whip and the carrot.
You know, I might have the property of having you know, size 11 feet UK size, and somebody else has size 11 UK feet. In some way, does that make us connected? That we have to...
No. I mean, quite obviously, that it's connected if I'm a shoe salesman, but that's not what we're talking about. So obviously, we already know what properties are relevant to the faculty of creating sensation. Sensation is the subject. Good and bad experience is the subject. That's the property we're looking for. Anything relevant to the manifestation of your capacity to feel a sensation. Those are the properties that are relevant in this conversation. So what game are you playing here? I mean, why not just... I mean, you've already been preposterously ludicrous. I mean, what is this? You know, how ludicrous is your ludicrousity going to get?
Be treated in some manner the same? How do you decide which kinds of properties need the same treatment? And just checking back, if you want to refer back to the bad, you have to make a decision. Does the art come from the illogic of not treating same, or the definition?
Fuck you, I do not. It's just idiotic. Oh, you have to choose. Either location is the substance of value, or brain function is the substance of value. Of course, the brain function is the substance of the value. And what I'm saying is location has no deterring, breaking, dysfunctioning effect on the sensation engine. The sensation engine still is creating sensation no matter where you locate it. So, fuck you. I have to make no fucking goddamn distinction between these two facts like they're in contradiction somehow. They're not in contradiction at all, motherfucker. The only thing that's in contradiction is the fact that clearly when you have the advantage of personally experiencing a sensation engine, you can't miss the art, and you can miss it if you're observing it. So that's the only distinction, is that when you're in the engine, you can hear the sound of the engine, let's say, but if you're not, you can't. So, or something like that. The heat, you can feel the heat of the engine, or whatever the thing is. Yes, so there's a quality you have when you personally experience it that just makes it so much more obvious what it is, and it's less obvious when it's happening to somebody else. But for any discerning mind, it's not fucking all that less obvious. It's still pretty fucking obvious what's happening. I'm on fire. That guy over there is on fire. Yes, I can see those two things are so goddamn fucking similar. There's no point in having a conversation about it.
And of the art is in the bad. Relating to this seeming loop that I find myself in whenever I talk too much about the bad is, which definition is of more fundamental importance? Which builds upon which?
Which builds upon which? Bad or negative or value? Well, there we go. I've already explained that. I mean, these are not the same word. Value is a description of the class. These are a description of the mates in the class.
Bad, negative, or value?
Alright, well this, I don't know what it means, so let's see what it says. Value as a difference.
I was watching, or recalling anyway, in AI.
iRobot, apparently. I've seen AI. I haven't seen iRobot.
I forgot the name of the actor. I can't believe it.
I don't really
I
like
remember the situation so well, but certain nouns. Anyhow, yeah, he's in the car drowning, and the robot saves him and not the girl. And they say, oh, the robot was working on a difference engine. It calculated this, that, and the other, and such. And, I just throw that out. I'm not going to.
Yeah, okay, so what? What does that have to do with something? That's right, we make calculations based on a bunch of bullshit subjective crap, and the argument being made by philosophers is that if you really understand reality, okay, if you get with the program and figure out what's going on and understand that your psychology is full of shit, then you can really understand what's important and get to the real gist of what the game is we're playing, which is try not to make too big a mess, you motherfucking cunt. What is it about the difference in mechanism states, fact of destruction or ability to categorize, fact of distinction, or ability to categorize upon a criterion that gives meaning? Well, again, meaning isn't given by all of this bullshit about you extracting a proper word to call it. Meaning happens, and it only happens when sentient beings' welfare is going to be jeopardized. Meaning is tied to value. When a non-value event is happening, no meaning. Value event, meaning. That's the way it works out. Okay, so it has to have some indirect causal chain link to value events, experiences by consciousness. And if it affects conscious experiences in some net positive way, then you call it positive meaning, and if it does it the other way, then it's negative meaning. But that's meaning is always going to be, it's another word describing something that has value implications. That's all. Meaning is just a way of indicating there are value implications in what we're talking about.
I was going to make that into more of a question. Not so. What is the difference in mechanism states? This is really the other question restated. What is the difference in what is it about differences in mechanism states and the fact that they have distinctions or an ability to categorize upon that criterion?
Well, again, you're talking about mechanism categorizing. Again, who cares about the categorization? The only thing that's important about this mechanism state is you're arguing because it's a mechanism state that creates the sensation experience. So when my brain is configured and I have the raw tooth nerve, the pin jabbing in and out, I'm having the negative experience. My point is that configuration, no matter where you place it in the universe, no matter when you reconstruct it, no matter what you make it out of, Legos, Tinker Toys, brown rice, it doesn't matter what you make it out of, as long as you have that configuration, you'll be creating something bad. That sensation can never be experienced as anything else but bad.
That gives a meaning or an art. Yeah? That's if you still want to hold to the definition that the art is in the bad.
Well, again, I still want to hold, like I made some, like there's some doubt I indicated, like I implied some doubt. I mean, this is just such a slimy way to respond to somebody's video. I've never, ever implied there's any doubt. You make up some false dichotomy that somehow suffering doesn't happen if same things are same. Like somehow I have to choose. Either suffering's happening or same things aren't same. You're an idiot. You're a lunatic. That's just fucking insane. It has nothing to do with the subject. I mean, you talk about a fucking category error. Holy fuck, are you off the subject?
But if you're going to say the art's in the bad, then you're wasting your breath talking about the illogic of not treating the same.
I'm wasting my breath talking about the illogic of treating the same. I don't understand. It's in the essence of the bad experience, jackass, not the experiencer. Again, you just keep turning everything into the experiencer. The experiencer has nothing to do with it. The question is, what is it? I mean, it's just so fucking goddamn stupid. Again, and if there was some rational disconnect, if there wasn't a perfect rational connection between negative sensation and avoidance, all right, where my brain says that is perfectly rational, then you can make this argument. But it's perfectly, there's a perfect continuity between, I don't sit there and say, gee, I'm emotionally insane. I just ran away from having my hand cut off. No, of course I did. So there's a perfect continuity rationally. So there's no issue here of the personal experience being a deception. There's only the idea that, yes, this is a negative thing and I perfectly rationally avoid it.
You needn't make that argument. You just need to keep saying bad's bad. Yeah.
Well, fuck you. I guess apparently I do, because assholes like you who even experience it will sit there and deny it.
And bad means what I say it means.
No, it means exactly what I say, what everybody says it's mean for all of eternity, which is everybody describes bad things as things that usually involve the horrible, unpleasant destruction of somebody's welfare. Asshole.
When you define the meaning of bad in the universe, whatever that means, do you define it as a description and a prescription? Well,
again, you keep doing this. Again, I can't help the fact that, yes, if it's really bad, there's going to be the prescription. It's not at the same exact moment you're not saying there's both a prescription and a description. First you describe it, but by its very description, it's bad. Yes, so it's yes, who cares? If it happens a millisecond after you describe it or it happens as you describe it, it doesn't really matter. It's in the nature of the idea, okay, of perfection and totally not perfection, or waste, all waste, or poison, all poison. I mean, this is just a thing. It has this quality. It doesn't mean anything if it didn't have the quality. If poison wasn't poisonous, then I guess it wouldn't be poison. Well, if bad doesn't have badness, it's not bad. That's right. And how could I possibly be wrong? Well, you could come up with some rational theory explaining how all sensations are the same and there's no difference. And if we kill and torture, it doesn't matter, because being tortured is just as good as eating cupcakes. So come up with a rational theory that explains how those two sensations, the sensations of eating a cupcake and the sensation of having a nail driven into my eye, are in fact exactly the same. Come up with a rational theory explaining that, and then you can prove me wrong. Fucking idiot. Alright, if a description informs us of the properties of a mechanism based on a criteria, that's not really a question. If a description informs us of the properties of a mechanism based on a criteria, that's a pause, not a question mark. What is the criteria that a mechanism must have in order to be described as bad? Well, we've already been over this, but it's this idea of creating a back to be whipped. Yes, our brains have synthesized the idea of the vulnerable flesh to be whipped. It's made the pillow of pain. It's created the thing that can be jabbed. It's created the glass that can be broken. Yes, that's what it's synthesized. It's synthesized a vulnerable consciousness.
if that's the case, how could you possibly be wrong?
Again, the simple answer is by you explaining how the sensations are not decidedly different, and different in a value-weighted sense.
How could anybody have any hope if this is your mandate of the definition of showing you that you're wrong?
Well, again, the hope is simple. You don't understand? Show me a bad that deserves to be treated exactly like a neutral. Show me something that's bad that earns treatment that's exactly like nothing. So show me something that's rationally called bad that we should consider to be absolutely nothing or good. And then you can prove me wrong. But until then, yeah, bad is real bad. Fucking cunt.
If a description informs us of the properties of a mechanism based upon a criteria, what is the criteria that a mechanism must have in order to be described bad in what I say generally, not in the universe, with no prescriptive element? You know, we do use bad.
Well, I know. I'm sorry. That's not going to play with we do use bad. No, we don't. You know, unless you're Michael Jackson, I'm bad. Yeah, that's fucking called. There's a word for those things. Those are gutter. What's the word for? Well, anyway, where you know that in that context, it's almost an opposite word. It's just it has absolutely nothing to do with the reality of the word, so you can't use those as an example. Fuckhead.
Where, like in all these other situations, where it's of no major significance, you know.
It's always of some significance, so fuck you, that's just bullshit. Unless somebody's making light of it for that very purpose of evading its significance. I still can't think of the damn word. Slang? Yeah, so yeah, slang uses of words, we're not counting those in philosophical descriptions.
Like my football team lost. It was a bad result, but it was good for somebody else. So
well, I know, but it was still bad for the people who rooted for the team, and they probably got drunk or they did something else stupid. So there probably was some suffering involved. They all got sad, and the bartender lost money, and everybody was. So in that sense, it was bad. I mean, bad things did happen to people that could be described as bad. Now, the fact that the other assholes in the other team were doing all the celebrating, so the fact that you're just switching bad back and forth and good back and forth and pretending a game like you're winning when you're obviously not winning, when you're just really saying, I'll have the bad this week, you have the bad next week. You're just fucking pretty much jerking off.
That kind of bad. What is the descriptive properties of that kind of bad? And contrast that.
Yeah, well, whatever. This is not part of the conversation. I think any fair-minded person knows this has nothing to do with what's being conversed here, okay? This has nothing to do with it. If you're going to talk about, like, whether animals suffer or this happens or this is a bad thing or a Holocaust is a bad thing, you don't bring up sports analogy. You don't bring up this bullshit. This has nothing to do with this subject. You either take this subject a little bit seriously or take it not seriously at all, okay? We're established, and especially when we've already established for the purpose of this conversation, we're not talking about trivial anything. Okay, we're talking about real hard torture, suffering. Okay, that's what we're talking about, motherfucker. So quit pretending we're talking about something else, you fucking goddamn cunt. I mean, this is just such an evasion.
What's the criteria for a bad in the universe?
Again, it's your bullshit. I've already done this description, okay? I'm not going to keep doing it every fucking video. I have to explain to you, okay, we have to take all this trivial crap you're going to try to bring up and say that's not on the table right now. We're talking about reality, motherfucker. No, I'm not going to do that in every fucking video because you're too fucking retarded to remember the context of the conversation. Fuck you, you are. You're just changing the subject again.
That has this additional descriptive and prescriptive nature.
Oh, they're zooming right through here. What is the criteria for a bad in a universe additionally prescriptive? What is the criteria for a bad in a universe that additionally prescriptive? That doesn't even make sense. Repulsion, attraction have no value, attribute. I don't care about those words. When suffering occurs to me, how do I know or see this obvious ought in it? Okay, so you can't see it. So when suffering occurs to me, how do I know or see this obvious ought in it? All right, there we go. So we're done, right? this is a completely dishonest conversation, right? You have to ask me a question like that. You can't see the ought, that you ought not to be suffering, that you ought to get out of the way, that you ought to prevent that from ever happening again. You haven't had something happen to you and you haven't said, I hope I never have that again. I hope I never do that again. You don't start doing little careful things like you get some horrible cold from some asshole and you say, shit, maybe I'm going to start wiping my doorknobs or something. Maybe I'm going to start doing things to prevent that from fucking goddamn happening again. You know, that doesn't shit like happen, that shit like that doesn't happen to you in real life. Well, it happens to every fucking buddy else in real life, okay? They have real life experiences and they learn the fuck from them and they say, God fucking goddamn damn, I ain't doing that fucking goddamn damn stupid shit again. So fuck you. How do I see it? Fuck you. Fuck you.